Guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, I'm glad you're here. First things first, I want to say thank you to all the channel members. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to say thank you to anyone who's taken the time to subscribe to the channel. And I want to say thank you for anyone who comes in to check out my knife, my EDC content. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. If you're so inclined, if you will hit that subscribe button and that bell notification icon down there, it really does help me out. So today, I was going to kind of talk about, this is purely subjective, just right out in the front. This is Javon's favorite EDC steel. That does not mean this is the best EDC steel. This doesn't mean this is the EDC steel you should seek out. This is just over the years that I've collected knives, I'm a huge fan in Elmax. Elmax is a bowler, Uderholm, I don't know how you pronounce that, blade steel that I think was developed around 2009, so it's a newer blade steel, but it's one of those interesting steels that just has a nice balance, performance, you know, durability, aesthetics, basically a high chromium with vanadium, molybdenum alloy, and I'm pronouncing none of those right. Known for really good edge retention, really good corrosion resistance, and pretty good toughness. And it's stainless steel, you know, with all the qualities that you kind of expect in a stainless steel, but it also has qualities of a carbon steel. Just to give you a quick rundown, kind of dump of the composition, it's 1.7% carbon, 18% chromium, 0.03% manganese, I think is how you pronounce it, 1% molybdenum or molybdenum, I guess the B silent, that's one I know I can't pronounce, about 0.8% silicon, and about 3% vanadium. So in the chart, if you look at Larry Thomas's chart, toughness is going to come in around 4, edge retention around 5.5, corrosion resistance around 8. So while it doesn't knock the socks off in terms of the top in any of those 3 categories, it's well balanced, which is kind of a rare, not rare, but it's not always found in steels. You're typically giving up toughness for edge retention, or you're giving up corrosion resistance for toughness. This is a knife that's both embraced by outdoorsmen, bushcrafters, and fixed blades. I've got several fixed blades in Elmax. I didn't know if I should have brought those in, but the ones I'm going to be showing out of my collection today are going to be folders, right? So starting out with the Kunwu Pulsar, which is a knife that has fantastic blade geometry. It's got a great design. I would love for them to make this knife in a frame lock. And there's nothing wrong with their bar lock. It's probably one of the best is in the bar lock game, but I'm just not a huge bar lock fan. However, this one has good snap. It is done really well. Titanium and Elmax, and just a great knife. So the knives I'm going to be showing you guys tonight are like the top 10 Elmax folding knives in my collection in no real order, but start off here with the Kunwu Pulsar, and then we will look at the Liong Mah KUF 3.0, which is the little cuff. So this is a small to medium sized knife, kind of set up as a perfect, when Leong designed this, he was trying to design a kitchen knife that works as a folder, which works as a great EDC everyday carry knife. And the cuff fits that bill. You've got a really unique blade that's positioned and angled perfectly for chopping, for rolling, for cutting, but for EDC, it is just a great knife. It is the one I have, G10 and titanium with an Elmax blade. This is probably the second knife I obtained in Elmax when I was collecting knives. because I really like Liong Mah and his design. The other one you'll see here in a second, the Field Duty EDC. But this little guy is fantastic. Definitely one of my prized knives. Cuts great. Get a little paper here. Fantastic blade geometry. Literally slices like a laser beam and cuts through a lot of different materials very, very well. So another one of my favorite folding EDC knives out of Elmax is the Liong Mah KUF, KUF, Kitchen Utility Folder 3.0. So moving on, we come to another little Elmax knife that I think is really cool. This is one of my favorite GiantMouses. I have other GiantMouses that have Elmax. We'll look at one here, but I've got a couple of others. This is the, I'm going blank on it. This is the GiantMouse something, and I'll put it in the description when I list it all out, and I might think of it by the end of this review or collection overview. But it is not the Atilier. I've got that one coming up. This is the Jutland. This is the GiantMouse Ace Jutland, Jutland. It is a very unique blade shape, kind of a turned up drop point. Very thin in terms of height. Carries very, very well. You've got titanium liners, micarta handle. This one has the blade hole for deployment. It also has a flipper tab. It works very well as a push button, POW, or as a light switch, POW. And then again, the blade hole, it is a liner lock, works very well. This was what I'd consider a full-size knife. You've got a nice back spacer, wire pocket clip. Great, I would say this would be a great skinner. It's also a great EDC knife if you're looking for a full-size EDC knife. And it is, again, an Elmax blade. Aesthetically pleasing. Elmax finishes out very well. And again, very stainless, pretty tough, and very good at edge retention. And it also sharpens and is easy to maintain. So that's another characteristic that makes it a balanced, what I consider to be a great EDC steel, and my favorite. So moving on, we come to the Bestech Sin, which is a sick knife with a wicked hollow grind. I warn you, I have been cutting a lot with this knife. I need to sharpen this knife. This knife is a hollow ground, full-size knife that is Bestech. But Beyond EDC, I believe, was the company that actually designed this knife. It's still very slicey because it's a hollow grind, but I can tell that there's a little drag going through the paper where there used to not be any because it was so slicey. But this knife is kind of a love it, hate it knife, depending on what your aesthetic is. For me, I love it. I love the multiple spaces for your finger to go, which is kind of the swirly cues in the blade, which a lot of people don't like. But the ergonomics of this knife, the action of this knife, the deep hollow grind in the blade. I love a bolster lock or a concealed frame lock. It's also Elmax steel. Fantastic knife. These guys are still available. And you can find them, I think, at Blade HQ. I'll leave a link in the description when I put it up on the internet. But great knife, made in Elmax, the Bestech Sin, a winner. Moving on, we come to entry from Vosteed. And this is the Vosteed Anro, or Anko. I never pronounced that right. It's a multi-deployment knife that has both a traditional flipper, a front flipper, a middle finger flick, and it utilizes this pivot lock, which is the first time I've ever seen one of these. Has a wonderful blade hole, really nice, robust, thick blade with amazing geometry, made out of Elmax and titanium, and slicey as you would ever want. I mean, there's literally no resistance when that knife cuts. It is an absolute dream. I'm going to go into hypnotic, slicey, cutting mode. But this, guys, is a fantastic knife. I've really come to like this knife. I have not had any problems with it. I do have some friends I've heard that have had a few problems with the lock itself. It might have been in some of the earlier ones. And I've not done a disassembly on this to actually see the components inside. But it feels good in hand. It's kind of a weighty knife, and I don't mean heavy, I just mean it feels substantial, like a tool. And the blade is Elmax, which is one of the reasons that I was attracted to it, that I bought it, was the blade and the new lock style that I'd never tried. So yeah, this is the Vosteed Ankylo, or something like that. I'm mispronouncing it. I'll spell it right in the description. Fantastic knife out of Elmax. I think it's a great EDC option. Then we come to another from Kunwu. After they did the Tao, first Tao, the big Tao, they did the X-Tao. The big Tao, which I also have, was a frame lock in M390. When they did the X-Tao, they did it in their axis lock in Elmax. So this knife, the Tao, or the X-Tao, and the other one I have looks just like it. It's just got a different locking mechanism and a different blade steel. Is a fantastic EDC knife. It is, both of them kind of have this orange peel titanium finish with an amazing cutting blade that's just ground perfectly. Wonderful, wonderful cutting geometry. I already had this knife in a frame lock, and I already had the Pulsar, so I knew I wasn't a huge fan of the bar lock. However, this knife coming out in Elmax 2, as well as being a different knife, and as satisfied as I was with the Tao, I did buy this knife, and I have no regrets. Again, it is, I wish, a frame lock, but it's not. And again, for smoothness, perfectly centered on bearings, it just doesn't have a lot of that natural detent that I like. But that doesn't mean it's not a fantastic knife. And if you like knives like Benchmade's that have the bar lock, axis style lock, river locks, Kunwu does a great job with it. So this is a Kunwu X-Tao. It is one of my faves in Elmax. Wonderful cutter, wonderful EDC knife, carries great, and it is just a banger. And again, guys, these are just going to be the folders, so to speak. I don't have my fixed blades out here, but I do have a couple, like the Viper Lily 1 and Lily 2, the Bradford G Cleaver. But this is the GiantMouse Atilier, which I also consider to be the Grand Ace Grand Mini, because it's actually an Ace Grand Mini. It's a miniature version, a small to medium sized knife, medium, that looks just like a little Ace Grand, but it's got the micarta handles, titanium liners just like the Jutland, and the Elmax blade. Fantastic blade geometry, very slicey. A little smaller knife, but I really like that. GiantMouse, I love their back spacers. I love their micarta handles. I love the liner locks. The detents on the ones I've been privy to own are very smooth, and I'm a wire clip fan. So in terms of in and out of the pocket, they do a fantastic job. Another thing a middle finger flicker like me really appreciates is that pear-shaped blade hole. It works fantastically. And again, you got the Elmax blade. So this is another mad win, and it is the little Atelier from GiantMouse. So moving on, we come to a folder that's not a folder. This is my Riot Exo M, and this is a Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive. The Exo M, the first run when they came out in Elmax. So this little guy is a skeletonized out the front, manual out the front, not spring assisted, so it's gravity assisted. Open it, slides in, open it, slides out, push the lock up, it's now locked, or your hand locks it when you hold it. But this, guys, is a Tonto version, and I mean therapeutically slicey. It is absolutely that. super slicey EDC blade. A little bit thicker grind, right? So this is not going to be what I would consider ideal slicing geometry because it's a shorter grind. However, it cuts very well and works wonderfully as an EDC tool. Plus, I love the way it opens. Made out of Elmax, one of my EDC knives, so I wanted to include it in this little rundown. And moving on, we've only got a couple more. We have got the fantastic EMP EDC Ronin, which is a hollow ground, stone washed, compound ground Tanto. That's very thin, very gentlemanly, has a front flipper that works amazingly well, has the ergonomics to me with the choil, that without the choil, with the jimping, that feel fantastic. Elmax steel, so it is another one of my EDC knives in Elmax. So again, it's that balance between corrosion resistance, between edge retention, and between toughness that make it, in my opinion, the best all-around EDC steel for me, for my uses. Keep in mind, guys, my uses are primarily cutting open packages. I also enjoy sharpening on my TS Prof fixed angle system. Elmax is a pleasure, in my opinion, to sharpen. It's got fair, better than average at 5.5 edge retention on the scale, but it sharpens up very easily, burrs up very nicely if it's heat treated properly. I think they shoot for about 62 on Elmax, but I'm not sure about that. Y'all might have to Google that one. But this is one of my faves, one of my fave EMP EDCs, and one of my faves just in the collection. And it's the EMP EDC Ronin Little Tanto. This is the Elmax edition, and it's just a banger. So finally we come to probably my one and done if it came down to it. If I was looking for an actual just tool, not a vanity knife. This is my Liong Mah Field Duty EDC in Elmax. It is perfectly ground. It is a fantastic cutting geometry EDC knife that I think checks all the boxes for me personally. It's a Riot made knife. It's a knife that I got early on when I started collecting more premium knives, and it was my favorite then. I've gotten over 100 premium knives that have come through the house since then, and I still think that the Liong Mah EDC 3.0 or EDC, Liong Mah Field Duty EDC is my favorite. And this shows you where you've got a little snag right in there somewhere. I've had this knife for almost, it's probably going on 3 years, at least 2.5, and I've not sharpened it. Again, I carry other knives too, but I've used it to cut a lot of cardboard. I've used it to cut a lot of paper. I've used it to cut paracord. I carry this knife quite a bit. The blade's held up amazingly well. Still very sharp. It may even be able to be stropped back to razor sharpness, but I need to give it after a couple of years, it's probably due for a good sharpening. Most of these guys, except for the Riot Exo, are running on skiff bearings. I'm a big fan of skiff bearings, but all these knives that I've shown you today are examples of Elmax knives from my collection. And again, Elmax is my personal. And again, I love S90V, I love S45, I love MagnaCut. I'm not hating on any of those steels. I'm just talking about, for my personal preference, I love, again, Van X is going to beat Elmax in, every one of those categories. I love Van X, but I've just been, the knives that have been designed that I've been collecting that have been in Elmax have all suited me fantastically well. I think they're all just absolute bangers. They're winners. And the blade steel, I've had no issues with corrosion. I've had really good results with edge retention. Toughness, I'm not the one that would test that because I don't use my EDC knives as hard as probably a lot of people do. But this is my little layout of 10. I'm a huge fan, guys. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. I do. I love each and every one of y'all. Thanks for taking the time to watch the content. Again, if you're so inclined, thumbs up. No big deal if not. If you're so inclined, hit the subscribe button. No big deal if not. But please, look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Please look out for each other. Go forward with love in your hearts and choose debate, not hate. I love you all. Peace.